Hi, my name is Rochelle Witherspoon. I'm the Nursing, Kinesiology, and Psychology Librarian at UNB Libraries, at UNB. Um, and this video is going to be about information and how it works in an academic environment. And I'm going to start by talking about something that is familiar. Google basically is the internet at this point, or at least they'd like to believe they are. So people use it. And Google is great for a lot of things. Google is perfectly fine for finding quick information on a topic. It's good for finding news or finding a specific website. It's fine for shopping. Lots of things you can do with Google in your daily life. I certainly use Google on a regular basis. Google is not a good resource for academic research. It just doesn't quite make the cut because it's not as carefully monitored as academic resources are. So there's three main reasons that you shouldn't be using Google for your research. The first is that there is no quality assurance on Google. Google does not exclude websites because they're not true or not good or not reliable. It does deprioritize to some degree, so if there's spelling mistakes, if there's things about it that raise flags with Google's algorithm, it won't show them as the top of your results, but they do appear and they are something to be wary of, and just not what you want to be seeing when you're doing academic research. Google is also prone to biases, and not necessarily the algorithm itself, but the algorithm interprets you and gives you what it thinks you want. So if you've been planning a vacation in Egypt, but you're actually writing a paper on Egypt as well, and you type, Egypt into Google, it's going to give you vacation and resorts and tourist stuff, and not necessarily the stuff you're looking for on social or political climates that you need for your academic paper. So Google interprets what it thinks of you and gives you what it thinks you want, which is not what you need when you're writing an academic paper. You don't want what you need to be deprioritized. The last reason that Google should not be your first choice when you're doing academic research is that Google doesn't have access to what we call the deep web, which is where the purchased resources that your library pays for are available. So the library pays for access to databases and to PDFs and to articles and to all sorts of information that Google just can't get to because it is locked down behind paywalls, and we pay for access. So Google can't get you necessarily where your library can, although it certainly does its best, and it succeeds to a small degree. So nothing against Google as a general tool, but it is not appropriate for academic research. When it comes to academics, you should be using your library. And really just because the library isn't prone to the same weaknesses that Google is. So our resources tend to be high quality. They are filtered and carefully selected. They tend to be less biased, if not unbiased. And they do have access to that deep web. We do pay to get access through those paywalls, through those barriers, so that you can access all of the research instead of just some of it. So library good, Google bad, for academic reasons. Yeah. However, when you're using the library resources, it's a little more nuanced than yay library. It's important to be aware of what kinds of resources the library has, because each of our resource types serves a different purpose and is appropriate for different things. Generally, for nursing videos, for nursing students, your three main resources you're going to come up to several times are reference materials, books, and articles. And I'll talk a little bit about those right now. So reference materials. Reference materials are collections of facts and information that have been generally accepted as true over time and summarized into one location. They are to the point and factual and just very, very like straight up information, no debate. They're best used in health fields, at least. They're best used when you're looking for an answer to a question, like a straight up, simple, straightforward answer to a question. So often for things like learning about assessment types or treatments or disorders, they'll get you where you need to be fairly quickly. Most reference tools will have a section, or sort of like what each topic will be addressed in anywhere from like a paragraph to a page. So it is summarized, it's short, but it gets where you need to be on a very fundamental level. So UNB libraries are primary health reference materials. The ones you'll see most often that are most useful to you are up to date, which is awesome and is available as an app for your iPhone or Android. We have RxTX and eCPS, which are more pharmaceutical prescription type tools. And we have the Merck Manual for Diagnosis and Therapy, which is just a good all-purpose find information on a topic kind of tool. And all of these can be found and accessed using our e-encyclopedias tab on the main library webpage. Okay, after reference materials, we have books. Books and libraries, they just go together. They're wonderful things. Books as sort of like one of these three groupings, so reference materials, books, and articles. Books provide a deeper, more thorough coverage of a topic than an encyclopedia or other reference material will, but they are broader than articles are, and I'll talk about articles in a minute. From my perspective, the most, at a first or second year level, the most useful purpose for books is to get a general idea of the scope of a topic. So if you have to write a paper on something that you're not familiar with, borrow a book, read the first chapter, maybe 2 chapters to get an idea of the introduction, and then just kind of skim through to see how the book is laid out. Because it was written by an expert in the topic and they know the shape of their field very well, it might give you an idea of how to organize your thoughts or organize your paper in a way that will make sense to the person who's reading it. So that's how I like to think about books for first or second year. By all means, I highly recommend reading the entire book if you borrow one, but I understand that you have lots to read and lots to do, and that's not always possible. So a chapter or two, and then get an idea, like just skim through. Books can be found by searching through the library catalog, which is the default search box on the library webpage, which is at lib.unb.ca. So they're super easy to find. You do a search on lib.unb.ca. It comes up with lots of stuff, so not just books. It'll come up with books and articles and chapters and microforms and maps and stuff. But over on the left-hand side of that page, there's a series of limiters, and one of them is books. So you'll get down to just books and ebooks with just the click of a button. Okay, after books comes articles. They are certainly like not last but not least kind of thing, because articles will make up most of what you probably have to read while you're at UNB. Articles as a resource are the most specific type of resource. They're the most targeted towards a small area, and they will often be the most current information you can find. It takes years and years to write and publish a book. Articles also take time to publish. They don't come out immediately. They take, after it's been submitted for publication, it's about a year. But they are available much faster than books or encyclopedias, so they do tend to be your most current source. Yeah, that's kind of articles in a nutshell. They are topic specific and current and just plentiful. There's lots of them. They're easy to find. And they're your bread and butter at UNB. So to find articles, you can find them through the library catalog. So you can go to that catalog, type in a topic, and it'll bring up results, and you can narrow it down to articles through that limiters column on the left. I don't recommend doing it that way. It is possible, but your better option is to go use a database. So databases are subject-specific collections of articles, typically, and they're just one place to find really good research on a topic. For health fields, the primary databases are CINAHL, which is for nursing and allied health fields. We have a little more broader, you have like PubMed and Medline and Embase, which are medical databases. They'll have a little bit less on the professional stuff that you might get from CINAHL, so you get like nursing as a profession more from CINAHL, and more on the deep medical stuff. And they'll also branch out into fields that CINAHL doesn't cover, like dentistry and veterinarian medicine. And then you have sort of your other databases. There are always interdisciplinary questions. So in nursing, you'll often use PsycInfo for questions of mental health or burnout. You might want to go into ERIC, which is an education database, to research how to educate patients or colleagues. You could be looking into a sociological topic. You might want to go to SocIndex. So there are other options, but primarily CINAHL is a good place to start your searches because it does tend to cover all of that stuff, at least to some degree, if not super in depth. So for today's purposes, I'm going to show you CINAHL, but other databases work much the same way. Okay, CINAHL. Just going to open up the library webpage, which again is lib.unb.ca. I'll point out this is the catalog, this is that general search box. Encyclopedias for those reference materials is right there. You have lots of options for how to search through the library webpage and how to access it. I'm going to show you the one that I find sort of the most useful for most purposes. So I'm going to scroll down about halfway down the page. Go to this research by subject section, where you have all of your major disciplines at UNB, and choose nursing and health sciences. So basically what this is it's one place where all of the stuff related to, like all of the best resources related to nursing and health sciences have been compiled for you by myself and my colleague Alex Goudreau in St. John. So here you have sort of more web pages on government documents for health. You have just your general nursing stuff, systematic reviews, which you'll get to much later on, and the NCLEX. We have a guide for the NCLEX and the resources available to you to support you as you go towards writing them. Again, most importantly for these immediate purposes, right here is CINAHL and your top databases for health. Click a little deeper and you get your top 13 databases as judged by myself and Alex Goudreau. So, CINAHL. Someone's talking in the other room. I hope you can't hear it. And if you can, I hope you can ignore it. Okay, so this is CINAHL. It works the way you think it's going to work. So you type in words and it produces a result. For today, I'm just going to do vaccine and autism, because this is a pretty big topic, unfortunately, and do search. I do like to search in separate boxes. So if I have two separate components to a search, I like to split it up that way. Yeah, and I'll leave it at that. If you want to use synonyms in your searches, there's another way to do that. You can do like vaccine or immunization, whatever. And that or allows you to use synonyms, but we'll get into that probably in another video. Just be aware that that's available to you if you really want to get into it. So yeah, searching works the way you think it's going to. It's simple, it's straightforward. It produces lots of results in this case because it's a pretty big, again, this is a pretty big topic. But I searched it because I want to show you this stuff. So here we have, I can limit to, oh, I don't like these limiters. They're not going to do me any good. Yeah, don't use any of these. You can limit by date if you want to. If you have a topic that you think will have changed over time and you're only interested in its most recent iterations, by all means, limit by date. I like the academic journals limiter. It's really important to use it because it avoids things like magazines that your professors will not thank you for using. So we're down from like 800 to 450, which is still a lot of results, but not, you know, not as many. And you've got all sorts of other options here. I mostly don't like these options for most purposes. They don't function the way you think they're going to exactly. So I would say mostly don't use them. The language one works just fine, but in this case they're all English, so that's not super important. Age, gender, and geography don't use. They don't work the way you think they're intended to. Sorry, they don't think the way you think. They don't work the way you think they're intended to. They do work the way the database intends, just not intuitively. So we're just going to leave that alone, and I'll blanket with just use with caution or don't use. Okay, so in the database, I'm going to show you just a couple more things. First of all, we have a full text PDF of this one. If you click it, you'll get to the full text of that article right away. If CINAHL doesn't have the full text of it, you have this check for full text option, which will check the rest of our databases. So UMB Libraries subscribes to about 250 databases, as well as several major journal packages. If it's not in CINAHL, chances are we do have it somewhere else. So you click out, take a look, and we can see full text available, and I can follow it through to the end. If it weren't available to me, this would be a red button that says request items, and I can actually order it from another university, and hopefully have it come in a relatively short period of time. So we can get most journal articles for you. Every once in a while there's one that's just impossible, but mostly we can get you what you need. Okay, so that's how you get to your full text. If you want to learn a little more about it, you click into the title. You can scroll through this. We have an abstract here, which is just a summary of the article. Typically, abstracts are between 250 and 500 words, and it just summarizes whatever the article says in that space. You have information like major subjects, just to find out what the major components are, so what the article is really about, as opposed to just happens to mention. You can find out what journal it's in. Lots of details available for you here. What's really popular here is this button here. It's the citation button. If you click it open, it will give you a citation for the article. Do be aware that there will be mistakes. Every once in a while you get one that's perfect, but there's going to generally be errors in it that you need to be aware of. So it's great to use. It's perfectly acceptable to use it to generate your citations. Just do be aware that editing will be necessary in most cases. In this case, for APA, you can see the title has capitalization in it. APA titles do not get capitalized unless they are the first word, proper nouns, or words following colons. The other one I would say is that this is the wrong URL. That's not how URLs are formatted for citations. Typically you'd see a DOI, or the URL would be specific to the journal, not the database. So, that is CINAHL. I'm going to detour back down to the slides and talk a little bit more about articles, because you haven't heard enough about them already. Articles are important. Just really gotta make sure you've grasped all the important pieces. So, articles, again, are these most specific, most current content on most topics. They are usually the result of direct active research by a researcher. they're often the original source of the information, again, so they come directly from a researcher doing the experiment, collecting data, and publishing it. It is the first publication on a topic. And they come out much, much faster than books and encyclopedias can. Articles undergo peer review. Peer review is a quality assurance process where every article that is published gets reviewed by 3 experts in the field, and they check for things like, does the methodology make sense? Are the articles did the researcher read all the articles that were important? Did they draw conclusions that made sense? Were the analyses appropriate? All of that stuff gets checked for during the peer review process, and it's really just a way of guaranteeing that the research is valid and good and okay for you to use. And they do it for you. And that's what that journals button is really good at in CINAHL. It's for getting rid of the stuff that's not peer-reviewed. It's not perfect, because journals do publish things that aren't peer-reviewed, like opinion papers or responses. But for the most part, journal stuff is all peer-reviewed, and that button will help filter it out for you. All articles have things in common, or most articles, I should say, have things in common. They are peer-reviewed. They are published in journals, which are produced on a regular schedule. So monthly, every other month, once a year. They do have a regular pattern. We call them serials. Articles typically have the same kind of lookout, or sort of a layout to them. And you'll get used to seeing what an article is supposed to look like, and you'll be thrown off if things don't look the way you expect them to. You'll see articles will have the same kinds of headings and subheadings. Again, you'll see like introduction and method and participants. You'll see results, headings that become familiar to you very quickly. And all articles published recently have what we call DOIs, or Digital Object Identifiers, which is a unique number starting with 10 that identifies that article from all the other articles that are available to you through the internet. So articles are a category. They have similarities between them, but they're also different kinds of articles, and lots of different kinds of articles. And I'm going to group them into very, very broad categories to explain kind of how that happens. Typically, they're grouped by how they differ in their creation. So case studies is a broad category. It is a report on an individual or a group. It is often very in-depth on that group. It is typically in response to a specific event. So for instance, there could be a case study on how a specific, or how an individual child copes with having their hearing restored after surgery. How they adapt to the world, how they interact with things, how they learn speech, how it develops. So it does tend to be a very, very specific, focused approach to a topic. It's great for its high specificity. You get a really, really good individual, personal understanding of a topic or an experience. Its weakness, of course, is that it's not generalizable, or at least it has a limited amount of generalizability to the population, because people are different. One person cannot be said to describe everybody, and that's where case studies are not as powerful as other kinds of research. But they're good, valid research, and they're best used for descriptive or demonstrative purposes. They're good to illustrate a topic, or when there's no other research available, because certainly some topics, some occurrences are rare and can only be captured by a case study, or can be best captured by a case study. The next very, very broad category of articles is what I'm going to call primary research. And this is any article that introduces entirely new information from an experiment or study. So, for instance, if a researcher were to do an experiment or do a study on the effects of exercise on frailty in the elderly population, that would be primary research and would fall under this category. There are tons and tons and tons of types of primary research. There's randomized control trials, there's cohort trials, there's cross-sectional studies, lots of different kinds. but it is kind of a category all by itself. And you'll get more aware of those narrower pieces of it, the real breakdown of how articles work, as time goes on. This is just a broad heading for a large category. And I would say this is what you'll see the most often. This is by far the most common type of study, common type of article in health sciences is the primary research, and it is most of what you'll be seeing and using throughout your degrees. The last kind of article, and where I'm going to mostly leave off for this video, is the systematic review. I mentioned them very briefly earlier, and I'm going to just skim by them fairly quickly, and only talk about them in terms of their greatest importance to you. Systematic reviews are awesome. They provide a systematic, comprehensive coverage of any research topic that they cover. So you can have a systematic review on the effectiveness of green tea in cancer prevention, and there is actually a systematic review on that topic. And what it will do is the researcher will find and analyze every single article that they can get their hands on, and they will be very, very thorough on that topic. They'll bring them together. They will assess the articles for quality and number of people and how powerful they are. They'll compare them against all the other research available, and they will draw a conclusion at the end to answer whether green tea is effective for preventing cancer. I believe that article said maybe, because there were some indicators that some cancers might be prevented by green tea and others not so much. That one was pretty wishy-washy. There were only a few studies. The more research there is on a topic, the more powerful the conclusions are. But generally speaking, systematic reviews are the best answer to a question. If there's one available, it is the best answer that's available to you. So it may not be the best answer you could hope for. It might not be a definitive yes or no, but it's the best we have based on what's currently available in the research right now. And they're really, really nice if you find one on your topic, not just for that purpose, but because they then point you to all the other articles that they've looked at. And you can go look up those articles yourself and use them for your own purposes. So they're wonderful. There's not a lot of them out there. The amount of systematic reviews being produced is increasing over time, but they are very, very time-consuming and difficult to perform, so they still don't make up the majority. They're going to stay relatively few in number. But always nice when you can find one for yourself. Okay. And that's a rundown of information at universities. This is how it works. Really, really basic fundamentals of how information is shaped in an academic context, specifically as it relates to health and social sciences. You'll find the further you get from those fields, the more kinds of research looking at different kinds of information. But for these purposes, right now, this is what's important to know. So if there are any questions, my name is Rochelle Witherspoon, and my email is on the screen.